Well, now that the election is over, it is time to be moving forward for our future. And have you thought about what's going to happen to your loved ones after you're gone? So here to talk about estate planning is Amy Edwards, CFP with Aspire Financial Services. Tell me a little bit about estate planning, just kind of the 101, because I know people don't quite get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things we don't like to talk about, but it can be so important. I just lost my father-in-law last week, so of course that reminds me to talk to clients about this. Probably the most important thing you can do estate planning wise, there are just a few steps you can take. The first step would be to get a will. And a lot of people are like, I'm either too young to get a will or I don't have assets. And I recommend everybody do a will as soon as you have your first child. That's very important. Because
and that's when you have the least amount of assets.
That's right. But you need to be able to set up who's going to be the guardian of your minor children. So that's a huge priority. The other thing is, if you think you don't have enough assets to need a will, if you have a car, if you have a home, if you have furniture, if you have jewelry or tools, there's a need for that. And I've seen so many families sever relationships over something as minor as a bedroom suit. So it's very important that you lay out those instructions to give your loved ones things that you want them to have.
Because we all have stuff.
We all have stuff. And maybe if you have something that let's say you have a ring from a grandmother and you know that you want a particular daughter to have that, give it to them while they're living. That's one of the best things you can do. But you can really take care of some of that squabbling that happens after a death if you'll go ahead and put down in a will who you want to have certain things. And it's not a complicated thing. You can write it out. It can be a handwritten document.
Oh, okay. So it's not something that you actually have to go to a lawyer over and pay a big fee.
Right. You can actually handwrite it and file it, but I do recommend seeing a lawyer just so that the terminology is what it's supposed to be. The second thing I recommend that people do is put together a list of all your accounts, including account numbers and the phone number to call in the event something happens. So a lot of times it'll be months and children will be getting statements from financial institutions that they didn't even know their parents had an account at. So put that in a notebook and just write down the list. And also, if you do everything online, keep track of your passwords.
True, because people get statements that way too now.
Right, and then make sure that you also put down where your safe deposit box is. Those necessary pieces of information that your beneficiaries are going to need when something happens.
And speaking of beneficiaries, make sure those are updated with the correct information too.
And that's kind of the next step.
I need to do that.
The next step is to make sure that if you have checking or savings account, even if it's joint and it's husband and wife, go ahead and put a payable on death or transfer on death beneficiary designation on those accounts so that the children will be able to have access to those funds with just a death certificate. Otherwise, you may have money that's tied up and the children can't get to it and they may need it for final expenses.
Those are things you don't think about.
Yeah, exactly. And last thing I recommend everyone do is, and I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but go ahead and plan what you want done at your funeral. Go ahead and just handwrite out what you want your casket to be, what color you want your flowers to be, what type of service you want. Do you want to be buried or cremated? Make sure that you go ahead. If you want to do that through the funeral home and do pre-arrangements, you can do that. But at least just write it out so that your family that you leave behind don't have to make those decisions.
And this one will say, Mom wants this, no, Mom wants this, no, Mom wants this. If it's in black and white, this is what she wants.
That's right. And then they're not trying to make decisions at a very emotional time because everybody wants Mom to have the best casket, but that may not be what Mom wants them to do. Right. So that's very important. And then put all these things in a notebook and talk to your family, let them know where the notebook is, make sure that they're aware of your wishes, because otherwise it does make it really hard for those you leave behind.
And be prepared. That's the number one thing, right? Be prepared.
Exactly. Be prepared. and like I said, it takes a couple of hours of your time now, but the benefit that it's going to offer to your loved ones when you're gone is just priceless.
Because you've seen it done,
That's
gone
right.
through it. I know when my grandmother passed away, my mom went through terrible, it took months and months and months. Had she have just taken care of a few things,
Right.
it
And
would have made it so much easier.
And most people, if you put off doing a will, I mean, you really don't want the state dictating what's going to happen. And things are tied up with attorneys for a long period of time, and it does just make things really tough on the family. So doing some very simple things now can really help those you
Estate
leave
planning
behind.
or stuff planning
Stuff
for some of us who
planning,
don't have a whole big
exactly.
estate. Do it now. Get your exit plan ready. Give Amy a call. She can talk to you about it and get you prepared, because that's what she does at Aspire Financial Services.